In the previous episodes, we determined where BlueRiver interacts with water. We looked at direct and indirect water-related environmental aspects, impacts, abnormal conditions, and emergency situations. Then we connected those aspects with compliance obligations, permits, limits, sampling duties, reporting duties, storage rules, contractor requirements, and drought restrictions. We also began to see the risks and opportunities linked to those issues. Risks such as water restrictions, permit breaches, contaminated runoff, supply disruption, or treatment overload. And opportunities such as water efficiency, reuse, better contractor control, process optimization, and improved resilience. Now, we move to the next question. What should BlueRiver do with all this information? This is where clause 6.1.5 becomes important. It's the bridge between determining environmental aspects, compliance obligations, risks and opportunities, and managing them in practice. So, the sequence matters. We did not begin by creating action plans. No. First, we understood the organization. Then, we looked at its context and environmental conditions. Then, we defined the EMS scope and life cycle boundaries. Then, we determined water-related aspects and impacts. Then, we connected those aspects with compliance obligations. Only now are we ready to plan action. So, this avoids one of the biggest weaknesses in environmental management systems: opening actions before understanding what really needs to be managed. In practical terms, clause 6.1.5 asks BlueRiver to take the outputs from planning and decide how they will be addressed. So that includes significant environmental aspects, compliance obligations, and risks and opportunities. But the important part is not just define actions. The important part is integration. So the actions should not live in a separate spreadsheet that nobody uses. They should be integrated into the EMS and, when relevant, into business processes such as production, maintenance, procurement, logistics, design and development, contractor management, emergency preparedness, monitoring, or management review. And BlueRiver also needs to think about effectiveness. How will we know if the action worked? So, BlueRiver is not planning action from an empty page. The inputs are already available. Okay? So, from episode 5, we have water-related aspects and possible impacts. From episode 6, we have compliance obligations and operational consequences. Now, BlueRiver needs to decide what to do with each relevant issue. For example, wastewater discharge may require monitoring and pre-treatment control. Cleaning in place may require approved cleaning recipes and dosing control. Chemical storage may require containment, inspection, spill kits, and training. Contractor work near drains may require environmental work permits and supervision. And drought restrictions may require water use priorities and production planning rules. A weak approach is to turn every issue into a generic action. So, for example, review wastewater procedure, or train employees, or update the environmental register. Those actions may be useful, but they are often too shallow. And I, as an auditor, I'm tired of seeing this kind of stuff. A stronger approach asks, What must change in the way BlueRiver operates? Should this be part of production control? Should it be part of the maintenance plan? Should it be part of contractor management? Should it be part of the monitoring program? Should it become an environmental objective? Should it be reviewed by top management? Clause 6.1.5 is about making environmental planning operational. Now, this is an important point. Many organizations jump too quickly from significant aspect to environmental objective. But not every significant aspect needs a formal objective. Some aspects are managed through routine operational control. For example, chemical storage may need inspections, containment, and spill kits. Wastewater discharge may need monitoring and operating limits. Contractor work may need work permits and supervision. These are controls, not necessarily objectives. An environmental objective is more appropriate when BlueRiver wants to improve performance, reduce risk, change the current situation, or achieve a measurable result. For example, reducing water use per liter filled may be an objective. Reducing carbon-oxygen demand variability in discharge may be an objective. Increasing water reuse may be an objective. But basic compliance and control should not depend only on objectives. They must be built into daily operations. BlueRiver needs to decide the right type of response. If the issue is driven by a permit limit, the response may be compliance monitoring and operating control. If the issue is driven by environmental significance, the response may be prevention, reduction, substitution, or emergency preparedness. If the issue is driven by drought risk, the response may include water efficiency, contingency planning, or alternative supply assessment. If the issue is driven by opportunity, the response may be process optimization, reuse, supplier innovation, or technology improvement. The point is to avoid one-size-fits-all action planning. Different issues require different forms of action. A very important point is that planning action does not mean launching a project for every issue determined. BlueRiver may determine several significant water-related aspects, compliance obligations, risks and opportunities, but that doesn't mean every one of them must become a new objective, a new investment, or an immediate improvement project. Some issues may already be adequately managed through existing operational controls. Some may require monitoring, but not immediate action. Some may need to be included in emergency preparedness. Some may need to be integrated into contractor management, procurement, maintenance, training, or communication. And some may be important but depend on investment, technology, legal feasibility, or business timing. These may be planned for a later phase. The important point is this: prioritization is acceptable, but neglect is not. So, BlueRiver should be able to explain why it is acting now on some issues, why others are being monitored, and why some are being deferred. This makes the EMS more realistic and more credible. Instead of pretending that everything can be addressed at once, BlueRiver creates a deliberate portfolio of actions: immediate actions, routine controls, medium-term improvements, investment-dependent initiatives, and issues to revisit later. Let's see some examples. For wastewater discharge, BlueRiver may need to integrate permit limits into monitoring, pre-treatment control, and escalation rules. For cleaning in place, Action may involve approved cleaning recipes, chemical dosing control, rinse control, and analysis of wastewater trends. And for chemical storage, action may involve containment, inspections, labeling, spill kits, and emergency response training. And for contractor work near stormwater drains, the action may be an environmental work permit, drain protection, and supervision. For drought restrictions, BlueRiver may need water use priority rules and production planning alternatives. For supplier water stress, the action may be adding water-related criteria to supplier evaluation or engaging key suppliers in improvement. So these are different types of action. They should not all be forced into the same format. Now, this slide is the heart of episode 7. Clause 6.1.5 is not only about planning actions, it's about integrating them. So if the issue is wastewater discharge, the action may belong in monitoring, production, and utilities. If the issue is cleaning in place losses, the action may belong in production and cleaning procedures. If the issue is chemical storage, the action may belong in warehouse management, maintenance, and emergency preparedness. And if the issue is contractor runoff, the action may belong in procurement and contractor management. If the issue is drought restriction, the action may belong in business continuity and production planning. And if the issue is supplier water stress, the action may belong in purchasing and supplier evaluation. And if the issue is increased production, the action may belong in management of change. So this is how the EMS becomes connected to the way the business works. Planning action is not complete unless BlueRiver knows how effectiveness will be evaluated. This does not always require a complex indicator. Sometimes effectiveness is evaluated through performance data. For example, water use per liter filled may decrease. Chemical oxygen demand variability in wastewater may be reduced. Leaks may be detected faster. Sometimes effectiveness is evaluated through compliance evidence. So, for example, sampling results remain within limits. Reports are submitted on time. Inspections are completed. Sometimes effectiveness is evaluated through event-based evidence. So, for example, contractor work near drains is completed without contaminated runoff. A spill drill confirms that people know what to do. So, the key question is simple. What evidence would give us confidence that the action is working? For this episode, the working tool is an action planning and integration matrix. The first column is the input. So this may be a significant aspect, a compliance obligation, a risk, or opportunity. The second column describes the action needed. The third column identifies where the action will be integrated. The fourth column assigns ownership, and the fifth column defines how effectiveness will be evaluated. So this tool keeps the logic simple. It prevents action planning from becoming disconnected from operations. So here is what the matrix could look like for BlueRiver. So wastewater permit limits lead to monitoring and escalation rules. These are integrated into utilities and EMS monitoring. Cleaning in place losses lead to a review of cleaning recipes and rinse cycles. These are integrated into production and cleaning procedures. And chemical storage near drains leads to containment and inspection controls. And these are integrated into warehouse and maintenance routines. Contractor work near drains leads to environmental work permits, and these are integrated into procurement and contractor control. Drought restriction risk leads to water use priority rules, and these are integrated into production planning and business continuity. And supplier water stress leads to water criteria in supplier review. So these are integrated into purchasing and supplier evaluation. So this is the practical meaning of planning action. And don't forget that column there for effectiveness evidence. Another useful distinction is between an action plan and routine control. An action plan is useful when something needs to be changed or implemented. So, for example, installing a new monitoring point, reviewing cleaning in place recipes, improving containment, or introducing contractor work permits. But once the change is implemented, it should not remain only as an action plan. It should become routine control. Monitoring should become part of the monitoring program. Inspections should become part of the maintenance or warehouse routine. Contractor requirements should become part of contractor management. Cleaning in place controls should become part of production. So the purpose of planning action is not to create permanent action lists. The purpose is to improve the way the EMS and the business operate. The output of this episode is an action planning and integration matrix. This matrix helps BlueRiver move from determination to management decisions. It shows what needs to be addressed, what action is needed, where that action will be integrated, who is responsible, and how effectiveness will be evaluated. Now, some actions will become routine controls. Some will become compliance controls. Some will become contractor requirements. Some will become emergency preparedness measures. Some will become supplier controls. And some may justify formal environmental objectives. That is the next step. So in the next episode, we'll look at how BlueRiver can define meaningful water-related objectives, targets, plans, and indicators. Now, let's close. Clause 6.1.5 is a powerful clause because it prevents the EMS from becoming a documentation exercise. It asks BlueRiver to take what it has learned from context, aspects, compliance obligations, risks, and opportunities and turn that learning into action. But the action must be integrated. So a wastewater limit must influence monitoring and operations. A contractor risk must influence procurement and site supervision. A drought restriction must influence production planning. A supplier water issue must influence purchasing decisions. A significant aspect must influence control, monitoring, emergency preparedness, or improvement. So, the question is not only what action should be open, the better question is where must this action live so it actually happens? That is how planning action becomes environmental management in practice. Now, if your organization needs support with the transition to ISO 14001-2026, or if you are looking to improve your current environmental management system, I may be able to help. I also support organizations that are starting from the beginning and want to implement ISO 14001 in a practical, business-oriented way. You can contact me using the email shown on the screen or send me a direct message on LinkedIn.